Don't miss the return of BizBash Live Los Angeles on Wednesday, July 19th at the California Market Center. Secure your spot today at bizbash.com/ExpoLA with the code GATHER for 10% off your pass.
Are you a follower? Okay, so we're gonna probably add
Welcome to GatherGeeks, a podcast by BizBash, the place where people passionate about meetings and events come together. Here are your hosts, BizBash CEO David Adler and Executive Editor Beth Kormanik.
Welcome to GatherGeeks. Today we're bringing you a conversation that David had with Aaron Kaufman, CEO of Fifth Element in Toronto, a management and design firm. Its clients include Mars Wrigley, the Canadian government, and nonprofits such as the Ronald McDonald House. He's going to talk about a lot of hot topics that deal with the business of being an event planner, from the threats individual planners face from big agencies to a frank assessment about the challenges young people face in entering the event business. Kaufman delivers some real talk and unvarnished opinions, and he knows it. You may find yourself agreeing with him or passionately disagreeing with him. Either way, he's fun to listen to, so let's get to it.
Okay, so we're here with Aaron Kaufman, who is one of the people that whenever we get together, the energy level just does not go down. And Aaron is one of those folks. And we just talk about all the issues that are going on in the world of events. And I wanted to start off with you, Aaron, talking about you're in Toronto, and I'm here in New York City. And of course, BizBash is in all these, both markets. But what is the difference between a Canadian event organizer and a Canadian vendor and a U.S. vendor? Is there really a difference?
Research suggests that Toronto, by volume, is the third or fourth, depending on what report you're looking at, live event or live experience market in North America. So New York and LA obviously sit ahead, and then I think we probably have a tug of war with Chicago over who gets numbers 3 and 4. That being said, I think people are surprised generally at how sophisticated a market we are. We are, a lot of people call us a miniature New York, and I think, we've earned that reputation. I don't know that there's much of a difference, to be honest. I think we have, the facilities and the capabilities. And, when I have an opportunity to work with some of the U.S. companies, which I think is the big difference, U.S. companies tend not to, or U.S. suppliers and vendors, I guess I should say, tend not to cross the border all that often. I think I actually find that the level of service overall tends to be, dare I say, higher in Canada.
Is that because Canadians, we always say Canadians are so nice?
I also think that we, when people say Canadians, I think it's a tough thing to say. It's like calling a New Yorker an American market, right? So for me, I think that we are very regional. Our country is very regional, and for me, for example, I don't have a major market within a 5-hour drive from me. The next major market would be, Montreal, or the next nearest major market to me would actually be Detroit.
What are the biggest fish in the event market in Canada? Why don't you give us a little bit of background on what does Fifth Element do? So we can set the tone.
Fifth Element is a full-serve management and design firm. So we essentially are unique and have followed the market that the UK kind of set, where we internally handle everything kind of in a 360-degree perspective. So we design internally. We do all of our our lighting and our staging design internally, and then we work with vendors to produce our vision. So we do some of our design work, floral, et cetera, in-house. But what people generally are paying for is the experience to work with Fifth Element to make sure that the design and management portions are cohesive. So we don't sub out our design work.
So who are some of your customers? Who are some of the end user customers that you would be?
So I mean, we worked with almost every major firm in Canada, whether it be consumer goods like Mars Wrigley. We do a lot of work with the Canadian government. So currently we're producing all of their events across the U.S. To promote Canada, which is a nice contract for us. We've been very lucky to work with some of the biggest and kind of most important charities. So Ronald McDonald House, the Canadian Hospitality Association, some of the major hospitals as well.
And so who is hiring you at these companies? Is it the event department? Is it the marketing department? Is it the C-level, C-suite people? I mean, where does the work come from as sort of a guide to how the industry is shifting a little bit too?
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the areas that I see as a shift, and one of the areas that I believe that the industry as a whole needs to be a bigger player in, is getting to the client first. I think there's going to be, and I think you and I talked about this a little bit, but I think there's going to be a major shift over the next decade where marketing, advertising, and PR, so a lot of the creative firms, are going to start recognizing some of the revenue generating possibilities through live experience. And I think a lot of those firms are going to start to press their clients, for which they are agency of record, to start allowing them to do that stuff internally. So because my company is built more like a creative firm in the way that we produce and manage and charge, we're going right into the end user. So that can be the marketing department or the advertising department. That can be C-level, absolutely. And we are using every tool in our toolbox to try and make sure that we're not losing out to advertising and marketing firms.
Is that the competitor? Is that the holy grail for the event industry, is to stay relevant and not to, like, the digital agencies are trying to get into the experiential agency side, like nobody's business. How is that war going, though? Is it successful that the event agencies are winning, or are the digital agencies winning?
So here's where, again, we look to the UK, right? And a lot of the UK agencies have started adding that advertising marketing piece and have started actually signing on clients as an agency of record. My issue with the industry really lies in the fact that there are likely far too many mom and pop shops to allow us to fend off that market. So I think the advertising and marketing market, or industry in particular, they started the same way that we did, right? Grassroots. And then, along came things like social media. And when social media started, you found a lot of mom and pop shops opening up because, individuals are able to learn faster than big companies. But ultimately now it's the big companies that are doing most of the social media work because they figured out how to monetize it and how to bring it in-house. And I think events and live experience is kind of the next wave of that. So
to go in-house? They won't go in-house though, right? Live experiences. Right? You're not saying live experiences are going to go in-house.
Well, I think they're going to. I think they're going to try and shrink the amount of players involved. So I do think that the ad and marketing agencies are going to realize that it's their turn to take this piece over the same way they did with social media.
Right. And so what does that mean for the end user client? Is it more money, less money, more efficiency, less efficiency?
Ultimately, it's going to cost the end user client more because marketing and ad firms know how to charge properly. So the best example I can give you is, an end user goes to an independent planner and the independent planner says, okay, sure, I'll do this party for you and it's, arbitrarily $2,500 and I'll help you plan it.
Right.
Especially on the corporate side, corporate planning in general for independent companies or people, in my opinion, that's going to be the hardest thing to continue with because all of a sudden the agencies are going to go in and their next round, I believe, when they're signing clients as an agency of record is going to include live experience because they're going to see the revenue possibilities and the hourlies involved. And the end user is going to pay more, right? Because ultimately their account rep is now going to be able to charge hourlies for planning live experience. And if you're not a big enough company, you're not going to be able to sustain that. You're not going to be able to adjust to work within that market.
So where are you seeing, though? I've been sort of really interested in seeing how people are charging for strategy and then how people are charging for logistics. Is it going to morph together from an agency perspective into one thing, or is it going to still be separate?
One of the people that I spend a lot of time talking to, who I know that is Robert Civic.
Right.
And he's somebody that I believe gets it. And I think ultimately what's going to happen is that we're going to have to smarten up in terms of the way that we run businesses. We need to understand that while we are a creative industry, we need to learn more about business. And so ultimately, I think some of the smaller firms and, some firms that are, kind of have a couple of clients and doing stuff like that, they're going to have to find a way to merge. We're going to have to start creating bigger companies with bigger buying power, bigger teams, because, how do you fight off some of the biggest advertising firms and marketing firms as a mom and pop?
So the event plan. So in event planning, you're kind of saying, if I hear you correctly,
yep,
that in a strictly event planning firm, days are numbered.
Yes,
and that the agency world is going to be able to morph together synergy of strategy and logistics and sourcing and execution all in one package. Is that what I'm
correct?
hearing?
I mean, the agency world in general, David, is an agency, or is a world where they are buying and selling companies all the time as well. So my best guess is, and it's kind of a bold guess, but I could see the advertising and marketing agencies all across the world coming to agencies like mine and saying, here's a buyout.
Oh yeah, no, I think that's happening. That's already happening. I think that you're seeing.
Yep.
You're seeing agencies that are morphing together left and right. But
yep.
I think there's still like a schism in what is event planning and what is event marketing. I mean, there's still two different things. Like if you do a corporate conference, an agency is not going to get involved in that necessarily. So it's still a couple different worlds, but they all are trying to get to the same end result of this feeling, this kumbaya feeling where everybody feels like they're at something where that's not boring.
At the end of the day, a lot of the good event companies have started organically from, good feelings. And I think that, somebody will do a project with somebody. And then, the thing that happens in our industry that drives me crazy is, every day you'll see a post online or somebody who says, I've had a good 3 years in this industry and I've worked for a great company and now I'm going out on my own.
Right.
And this term of the out on your own is what's ruining us. It's going to allow the big agencies to take us over.
But I mean, that scares the living shit out of most people when their top employees say, I'm going to go out on my own. And then it causes wars that last for generations between hard feelings between people.
So here's my platform on this, and this is what I say. We have no barrier to entry in this industry. Right? Today, my entire staff could leave and start their own company. Each of them.
Right.
And there's nothing I can do. And requires no investment, no capital, no nothing. And so here's the challenge that I've made the last couple of times I've been out speaking, and I see people nod their head. And so what happens if, as an industry, we teach our clients that here's the bare minimum that you should look for out of a company before you consider hiring them? And we educate our clients and we say, number one, every event company should carry a bare minimum of a $5 million per occurrence liability insurance policy. That's not cheap.
No.
Right? Fifth Element has that. We do big events. We need that. That's way beyond what most venues require. However, that would require anyone who's going to, quote, go out on their own to have to make a capital investment in their company.
So you're basically you're trying to create barriers to entry as an entrepreneur so that you can protect yourself.
And why shouldn't we?
Yeah.
You never see a guy who's in the marketing department in an ad firm, or who's an advertising coordinator or whatever else. You never see that guy get up in the middle of his day and go, you know what? I'm going to open my own advertising firm.
Well, there's a thing because the event industry is so visible and that everyone has client contact for the most part.
Yep.
People form relationships that you don't even see.
Right.
And that scares the hell out of people, I think, in terms of that's why caterers don't even like their chefs to be famous, as opposed to restaurants that do.
You're absolutely right. And I think we have a big problem there. And I think what happens when you dilute the labor pool, and when good people get to go out on their own who are very skilled but don't know how to run businesses, it costs us all money.
Right.
And ultimately, it's going to be the reason why, and if I circle back, it's going to be the reason why the bigger agencies are going to be able to swoop in and take our business. And there are tons of amazing event professionals all over North America and Europe and the world. I think the challenge lies in, somebody, again, goes, there are very little rules, right? While I know that you guys would be someone who certainly would enforce, or at least I think would enforce contracts and trademarks and all sorts of stuff. As an industry, again, people go, well, it doesn't look good. If it gets out, people will be mad at you.
Right.
And I think that makes it really, really difficult. What I think we need to do is we need to figure out a way to limit the amount of people who aren't playing by some set of guidelines or rules or
So when you say that, what do you? I mean, you must see this up front, and I maybe don't see it as much. What are you saying when you're saying that? Or what are you seeing people doing?
I mean, certainly, look, you have people who, it's notorious in the wedding industry, for example, that someone plans their, friends, best friends, sisters, mothers, cousins, wedding, and now they're a wedding planner.
Right.
But are they carrying insurance? Are they, doing the things that businesses should do? And then, what they're doing is they're also very easily in this industry. They go on, somebody wonderful's website and they copy the verbiage and they put it on their webpage and they say, we offer all this for $1,500. And when, someone like me, when I go out and speak, I'll challenge them and say, hey, listen, how much hourly are you making?
Right.
But nobody thinks about that because the person's happy to make $1,500 a week planning a wedding.
Right. You know what they call that? I just did a podcast with a guy who said that's called a friender, a friend who is a vendor. And usually it's a very amateur hour type of thing.
But don't you find, David, that when you look around this industry, it's frowned upon to be a real business person?
I think that's changing. I mean, I see people like the Colin Cowies of the world and the Brian Raffinellis and the Sharon Saxes that are business people first. And what I am finding is that the ones with process and integrity and outlast all of the what I called frienders, the friend vendors, and it's a long slog, and you have to really sort of like not look back a little bit. You just can't worry about those people. You'd have to let talent ride. When we started BizBash, actually, everyone thought we were disintermediating the event industry, the event planner, because we were making their vendors public, and it turned out that really, people don't care about the vendors. They care about the talent of the strategy and the execution and of all those other things. And so it turned out that it was perfectly fine to be transparent on the vendor side, on the who does what. When people thought that was their strength, was their Rolodex, and it wasn't.
Right. I feel like for me that, when you, and I mean, you get to talk to a lot of people as well, but when I talk to people and I say things like, are you honest with your clients that you upcharge on things?
Oh my God, you're talking interesting now.
Right, but this is a basic principle of business, right? And so people say, well, no, why would I tell people that?
Well, the flip side of that is the flip side of that. I believe that this commission thing is corrupt in many cases.
Sure.
That the other side is, transparency is the new authenticity, in my opinion. But you have to be upfront with the client that if you want to do this, we're going to charge you more for that. Right. And I do believe that people are afraid to confront their clients because you get the oh my God, the might as wells. You get you're sitting there and it's like, oh my God, this is going to be great, and then you don't realize as a business person that this is going to take me another 20 hours.
But real businesses aren't afraid to go in, do business the right way, and lose. Nobody wants to lose. That's not the perspective at all.
Right.
But real businesses understand that you win some, you lose some.
Right.
So what they're not prepared to do is go, a real business, generally speaking, won't go, you know what, I'm going to reduce my fee from $2,000 to $1,500, but I'm going to charge 300% on my charge plate rental to make up the difference. And no one will know anything. No one will be the wiser.
Right.
And I think these are the key points for us, the way that the businesses operate, and the fact that you have untrained business people trying to be in business, and no barriers and all of these items. This will be the demise ultimately.
Well, the thing is, though, I think that what we've done, the good job that we have done as an industry, is the value of face-to-face marketing and the value of face-to-face. The 25% of all marketing is now something to do with event-oriented things. And that has come along. I always say that that for years, the event industry has been sitting at the children's table for Thanksgiving, even Canadian Thanksgiving. And now we are at the adult table, and we're at the strategy table. And the power of live interaction is at its height in terms of credibility. And I don't think some of the vendor community believes that yet. And we're suffering from a bit of an inferiority complex, except when you're dealing with professionals like you and some of the people that really respect what they do and they feel that they're providing tremendous value.
David, I read an article the other day, or I guess it was a guest blog post about RFPs. And the person said, I'm not going to respond to RFPs anymore. And, I kind of made a comment about, listen, RFP is a request for a proposal. Nobody's telling you have to. In our industry, we get a hot topic of, the quarter usually, right? So this seems to be it right now, RFPs. I'm saying, reply. I mean, we do a ton of RFP responses, but here's the thing. We also win a ton of them. And so this is, again, people who, aren't necessarily winning, who are crying about not winning. And so for me, I look at it and go, I carefully review an RFP. I understand the parameters of it. I then will put together, a quick cost analysis in terms of what it's going to cost me to actually produce the RFP. Like, am I talking about a 30-hour, time? Am I talking about 10 hours? Do I have things that are templated, which I believe, are good? Is my current corporate bio going to work? All of those things. But I choose to respond to the ones that I think I'm going to win. I'm very lucky. So one of the things that, people know about me is I'm probably one of the most networked people in the industry. So, a lot of the stuff I get is very organic, obviously. But I am not, I do not believe for 1 second that, you can be timid in this industry. I think, I am somebody who is fierce and notoriously fierce for going after business and closing business. And I have absolutely no shame. So I don't care that people will later go, oh, he was, super tough and went after the business. I cold call still. So I don't send, hey, here's an email. We got a call from a client last week who actually is looking at a couple of vendors, and they said, let me send you the email in terms of some of the things we're looking for. And I called her back, and it's a fairly substantial program. And I said, you know what, I can't prepare a document for you because I don't know you. I don't really know much about your organization. If it's going to cost me the job, that's fine. But if you really want the job done properly, let's make a meeting time for next week. I'll come in and spend an hour with you. I'll learn everything I can about what you're trying to do, what you want to do in your organization. And then I can prepare something for you. And I guarantee you I'm going to win the job out of it. We're going to go meet with them later this week. And I'm going to win the job because ultimately I can provide now a custom response for them that, nobody else can.
Why wouldn't someone else do that? Why would your competitors not do that? Why don't they do that?
Because they're lazy. And they think it's the event business.
Okay.
Right? So for me, it's not the event business. It's just the business that I'm in.
Right.
But people forget that there's a sales process. There's people just think, I'm in the event business. I'm going to send some pretty pictures and, I'm going to toss a number that I feel okay about. And once I win it, I'll figure it out.
Right. Okay. So now go into Aaron, the guy in the civic Aaron that is not, I believe that leadership is one of the most underappreciated assets of a business. I mean, after 9/11, I got very involved in the city. It made my business because I cared about what was going on as much. Whenever you give, you get back in spades. But tell me tell us what you're involved in, and then sort of how you stay involved, and just give us your story on that.
Sure. So I learned very early on in my business that I really felt it important to be connected to the industry. And so, right off the bat, after I learned a little bit, I decided that I wanted to know everybody and everything. And I like the power that comes with that. Power to be able to do business, and power to be able to have conversations with great people. And I take advantage of it all the time. Now, years later, I've had the opportunity to serve ILEA in a number of capacities, including, of course, as the president of the ILEA chapter in Toronto a few years ago. And I've had the opportunity to speak to virtually, probably about 2/3 of the chapters across North America. I've had the opportunity to speak, all over the world. I do a ton of speaking on the business of events, a lot of the stuff that we're talking about, transparency and barriers to entry and, the macro issues with the industry. And currently, I sit on a number of boards, including the Student Event Professionals Association and, all sorts of great things. But more recently than not, I know there's an organization that, BizBash has been involved with for a long time, and that's, of course, the Search Foundation. And I'm a Canadian that is the current chairman of a U.S.-based 501c3, which is kind of awesome. And so in my role with the Search Foundation, I chair the organization. I'm super proud of it. We do amazing work, raising money for event professionals in crisis, as you are well aware. It's kind of been, again, I'm hungry to know people and to learn and to grow.
Let's go back to the steps I've taken. Let's go back to the theory of this. I mean, this is my personal feeling is that any opportunity that you have to talk to someone not about business and cement a relationship pays off in business down the road, no matter whether you like it or not.
Sure.
That you agree with that comment, I assume.
Yes.
But talk about, okay, you're 21 years old, or you're just getting into business. What's the first thing, what advice do you give to that person that's just getting in the business that wants to sort of become a leader in the industry?
You know what? Go get it.
But what does that mean? How do you do that? What is the first thing what was in the back of that mind of yours that said, I'm going to go after this ring? What did you do? Did you just join it and go to the meetings and talk to everybody?
Sure.
Is that sort of the obvious thing to do and not sit in the corner and be a wallflower?
I looked around and I said, this is an area that I can be great at. And I think right now, when I came up, there was no schools, right? You were learn on the fly, sink or swim.
But take us back to the first meeting, the first ALEA meeting, or whatever, ISIS, whatever it was.
Yep.
And you put your hand out and said, I'm Aaron Kaufman. How did you sort of go from that to a leadership role? And what is the secret sauce?
I walked into my first ILEA meeting probably 3 years into my business, so I'd say a dozen years ago. And it scared the shit out of me.
Right, that's what I'm trying to get to. Okay, how did it scare the shit out of you?
I walked in and I looked around and I had done, some research. Now, again, back then it was much harder because it wasn't, you couldn't just get online as quickly and learn quite as much. I walked into the room and I knew who some of the players were, and I thought, okay, this is going to be easy. These are nice people and they want, an inclusive atmosphere. And it just wasn't. It wasn't at all. And in fact, to be honest with you, my first number of years trying was very, very difficult. And I ran into egos and I ran into, brick walls everywhere, and people didn't want, which is still my complaint in the industry, the veteran people don't necessarily want younger people to be visible and successful, because it means that the younger people want to change the way things are done. And that's a gripe of mine in the industry. However, I just stuck with it. And I think, right now, a lot of the people that are coming up are being taught in school, the way that they should be and the way that they can be. And, you got to ask for way more money than what you're worth to start as a job. And, you are a professional coming out of school and all this and that. And I had to earn it.
But let me go back. I'm going to be your therapist a little bit here.
Yeah. I love this.
What was the secret sauce? I mean, I'll tell you what mine is and see if it is.
Yeah.
Is that I was able to make suggestions about things that people could do that really opened up people's minds. So it's not just about making nice to the people. It's about being constructive. Was that at all part of your mission, your journey?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that as I gained some confidence,
which is a very important
through professional achievement, getting bigger clients and putting my head down at my office, I was able to walk into those meetings, and I think people looked at me a little bit more legitimately, which was kind of the first step for me. The second step is honestly that, from a young age, I've always been a shit disturber, and I think that, I like to disrupt. It's what I'm known for.
What does disruption look like? Here's an idea. Screw you. We're gonna do it this way, or here's a collaborative thing that I think would be great for the organization.
No, you know what? I think disruption is a less sexy word for leadership.
Yeah, absolutely.
People always want to talk about the hustle and you're a leader and this and that. Listen, leaders are important. You personally are a leader in the industry. I am, lucky enough to have friends and mentors who are leaders in the industry, and a ton of respect for all of those people. But for me, being a disruptor is the same thing. And so I'm willing to put my ass on the line and try something new. Success or failure is not predetermined. Thankfully for me, more of my ideas are successful than failures.
Yeah, I think you got to be willing to lose. You got to be willing to have things fail. I mean, all of us.
I'm also willing to stand on a soapbox and say, you know what? Here it is.
Right.
This is what I'm going to say. And every time I speak, I start every one of my talks with, this is just my opinion.
Uh-huh.
And you don't have to agree with me.
Right.
But, I'm standing with the microphone and they're usually not. And so I get to, say what it is that I'm thinking anyways. But I think that was my turning point when I realized that I wanted to have a voice.
Uh-huh.
And it didn't have to be a voice that people agreed with, but it had to be a voice that people listened to.
Well, what I also find that those leadership skills that you learn in those organizations help you in your business so much that it's almost like a rite of passage that if you don't get in a leadership role, you're not going to be as successful in your business.
So I'll give you this. So when I was, and this was kind of the turning point for me in my business and kind of in my professional career in general. When I was very new and very green, and kind of Facebook had just come about.
Those old days.
So now I'm getting like notifications that I've been friends with people for 10 years, which is kind of cool. But around that time, I had started doing some research, and I'll keep this really brief, but I came across a lady who had a great company at the time and still does, and her name is Janet Elkins.
Yes.
And I realized, I was following Janet a little bit, and I sent, tried to message her a couple times and friended a couple of people in her office. And I made her a deal, and I said to her, you know what? I know a little bit about Facebook at the time. I was a little bit younger and a little more hip to the new technology. And I said, I'm going to pay for myself to come down to California. And what I'd like to do is work out of your office for a few days or a couple days. And in return, I'm going to teach you a little bit about Facebook, and you're going to teach me a little bit about business. And I put myself out there. And at the time, believe me, I had very little money. I didn't have, tons and tons of success. Thankfully I didn't have kids then, so I could take a bit of a risk. But that was my risk. And I called her and I said, Janet, can I come there for a couple of days on my own dime? And I want to learn about how this industry works. And she was gracious enough to allow me into her office and into her boardroom and to spend time and to work and to learn.
And did you?
And that was the turning point. And all because I put my butt on the line. And she could have said no, but I basically gave her no choice.
Right.
So she let me come down and learn.
That's fantastic. I mean, that's a great lesson. I mean, that's what people listening should sort of. Disruption doesn't have to be a negative. Disruption is sort of disrupt your own way of thinking in many cases.
Absolutely. But I credit her for a lot of the attitude that I have now, because I learned at the time that it's a business and go do your business. And she is great friends with some of her biggest competitors, and that's okay.
Oh yeah.
But fight fiercely for what you want. And everybody, regardless of your position, everybody likes money.
Yeah, everybody likes
right?
money, but is that what people are working for? Are you really working for money right now at this point? I mean, there's all the studies I'm seeing are about purpose. So where does purpose and money
Oh, come on. Listen, this kumbaya purpose stuff, you think I come to work every day and I go home and go, you know what? I had great purpose today.
I believe so. I totally believe that
David,
you need both.
Last month when you paid your mortgage, was it with purpose?
Absolutely. Why wouldn't it? Because I like living where I live. And I think purpose is an important motivator, because I don't think money, I mean, I know people that have gods and gobs and gobs and gobs of money, and they have no purpose whatsoever, and I view them as living in emotional poverty.
Sure.
So I
listen, I have 3 children at home.
Yeah.
My purpose is to create the best live experiences for my clients in the world.
Right.
That's my purpose.
But
and I fulfill that every day by doing.
Let me take that a little further. You're creating the best live experiences because we know that there's magic in live experiences that changes the world. The conversations that happen at those live experiences will enhance people's lives. You never know what's going to happen based on that interaction. So we are sitting in an industry that is so valuable because we're able to do that. So, you say that you may not have, the purpose may be only that, but I think that the underlying purpose of what we're doing is what we're trying to elevate, I think.
So, David, I said this at a talk a couple of years ago, and people had tears in their eyes. And what I said was that we are likely the only industry in the world who can have an impact on people's lives every day.
Yep.
That's the purpose.
Yeah. No, that's so I think you're coming around to my point of view here.
Yeah, that's it. And so that's the purpose.
Yeah.
But, my purpose is, sort of split because, I am one of the luckiest guys in the world to be able to have a job in this industry doing what I do.
Yeah.
Right? I can't imagine doing anything else.
Right.
But if I couldn't make money, I can't pay my mortgage with engagement.
Absolutely.
I can't pay my mortgage with all of those things. So it is, turning your purpose into money is paramount for being successful.
What I think people don't realize is that the event organizing business and whatever it is a talent. And talent, should get paid for that talent, whatever that is. And so you always say that if you should, when you get paid for what you love to do, you feel like you're not getting paid, but you really are. So
absolutely. This morning, actually read Professor Joe Goldblatt, who most of the industry is aware of, and if you're not, you should be. He posted this morning via Facebook his last lecture. At the school he teaches at, and he posted it verbatim. And he's a guy that I admire a ton because he's taken leadership. He's almost, you want to call him the father of the industry, or one of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that he, he's a guy that I follow a lot and have a ton of respect for. And so I think it's important to stand on your soapbox, and I think it's important to.
Let's move on a little bit to, as we end, what are the biggest challenges you see in our industry and how do you solve them? You speak on this all around the world. What have we not talked about?
I just think that we need to take seriously 2 very important things. Number 1, legitimacy. So we need to be a legitimate industry. We need to be paid properly for our work. We need to be, as speakers and presenters, people need to be paid. Enough with this free. We need to be legitimate. We need to be legitimate as an industry. And I think, people look at us as a joke sometimes. And, I reference the report that comes out every year that suggests that event planning is the 5th most stressful job in North America, or I guess in this case it's the United States, but same kind of thing. And we all, not myself, but much of the industry, decides to hop on that bandwagon and repost that and talk about it and go, now people understand why I'm always so stressed. And, I turn around and I say, oh, so you consider yourself to be more stressed than, an emergency room surgeon?
Yeah.
That's insane to me. An ambulance driver, you're more stressed than an ambulance?
Yep.
And those people are critical services.
We're in the happiness business.
And I think people on the outside look at that and go, what a joke.
Right.
Like, I think it's funny, but people tend to, put that out there and say, yeah, we're the fifth most stressful job. So we're not legitimate as an industry, and we need to find a way to be. There are great people in this industry. There are very smart people and talented people who are leading and running the industry and are exciting and fun to watch and fun to talk to. But there is a whole host of people who just don't get it.
Yep.
So that's number one, legitimacy. Number two is we really need to, as an industry, start. We need to start transitioning. So what I say by that is a lot of the people who started this industry 30 to 40 years ago, I mean, events have been around forever, but who started this as a real business and industry, these are the same people who are still employing a lot of the same practices that they were a number of years ago, because why change what isn't broken? But there is a whole host of unbelievable young talent that needs to be listened to and understood and respected, and put up on a pedestal. And that doesn't happen because we continue to listen and see the same people over and over and over again.
Well, I agree with you in some ways, and in some ways I don't. I know that what we try to do is try to find new talent. We believe that a lot of the other industry sort of leading groups are about clicks and people that have been in there forever. But the young new talent is unbelievable in this industry, and it's not coming from the event industry.
I should say a lot of that falls on the associations in general.
Yeah, I think that's a broken model,
there's a default.
Yeah,
you want these particular 15 people because the names are recognizable.
We don't see that. In fact, most people in the event industry are not part. I mean, the opportunity for an association is most people are not part of it. We have 230,000 users a month coming to BizBash. And probably 1% of them are part of any kind of association. The fact is that people are using the skills and things about event organizing that are fantastic, and it is multiplying. It is a global business. It's like events are a global, worldwide business because we're all people, and everyone's doing it. And I think that the organizations, that the idea is to get out of your own way and to talk to people that are have no connection to the association world whatsoever.
I'll say I'll give you a blanket statement, but I don't think tenure should mean anything in business, nor should it mean anything in the management of businesses, associations, anything. It should be the best.
Talent.
The best should be sitting at the table.
Well, New York City is based on a meritocracy, and it was a city built on commerce and a meritocracy. And I believe that the meritocracy is kind of what it's about. Now, what has happened in the past is that you really couldn't see what other people were doing because everything is a closed system. And what I believe that we did with BizBash is we opened it up a little bit to allow people to peek over the fence, which is part of our mission and our purpose as well. And it raises the bar when you get to see what other people are doing. And so these kind of conversations that we're having, getting people to come in and into our conversation, even though it may have been a little therapy session at a time, it's all good for all of us.
David, I look at young people and I say to myself, and I'm kind of transitioning from young to, middle of my career. And I look at some of the young people coming up and I say, those are the people that I'm keeping my eye on, because I need to continue to push myself both from a business and creative perspective to make sure that they continue to push themselves.
Yeah, but you know what? But I think it's an age is not the thing. I believe that I consider myself millennial minded. And I believe that it has nothing to do with age. It has to do with curiosity. And we're in the most exciting times of the world right now. And that, people that are inspiring each other no matter what age they are. In fact, when the boomers lean into the millennials and the Z kids and everything else, it's unbelievably fantastic. So it's the morphing and the merging of the generations that's so great now, I think.
That I agree. I hope that, and you certainly are somebody who leads both, by example in terms of your publication and what you guys do, and also by reputation, but complacency for us as an industry, I see it as a bit of a challenge right now.
So that was a thought-provoking conversation and potentially polarizing to you, our listeners. So let's continue the conversation on our Twitter feed at GatherGeeks. Let us know your thoughts. If you're a planner who's gone out on your own, was it worth it? How did you learn to run your business? Or do you regret it and wish you had heard this advice before? You can also share your thoughts on our Facebook page. Thanks for joining us, and we'll be back next week with another GatherGeeks.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you like what you're hearing, be sure to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or your favorite podcast app. We can be found on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Player FM, Google Play, and Pocket Cast. Be sure to leave us a rating and review. It helps others discover the GatherGeeks podcast. We'd also love to hear from you. You can leave feedback on Twitter at GatherGeeks or leave us an email, gathergeeks@bizbash.com. We hope you'll join us again for the next episode of GatherGeeks. Until then, gather on. Don't forget to register for BizBash Live Los Angeles on July 19th at the California Market Center. Join nearly 1,500 fellow event pros at the must-attend event of the year. Secure your spot today at bizbash.com/ExpoLA with code GATHER for 10% off your pass.